Hey, what is happening, guys? Thank you for tuning into Rules for Rebels. Today, we're going to be talking about words you can't say on Amazon merch. And no, we're not talking about like weed or shit or crap or bad words. We're talking about like trademarked words. In today's video, we're going to be talking about trademarks. Now, before we get into this, in just under 3 hours, I'm going to be on Merch Talk with Chris, the thrift shop hustler. You guys may know him from Steemit as reseller. Really cool guy, really nice guy. He's a merch seller. He's an artist. He works in the movie industry. If you ever watch Gary Vaynerchuk, if you've ever seen, he's got all this kind of stuff that people have sent in and pictures and awards and everything else in his office. But he also has an action figure doll of himself. And it was actually Chris from the Thrift Shop Hustler who made that and sent it to him. So that's kind of one of his claim to fame. But really, really cool guy. He's killing it on Steemit, doing well on merch. His YouTube channel is growing. Really good guy. A lot of great info. Check him out. The Thrift Shop Hustler. We're going to be going live at 12 o'clock Central Time. That's 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock East Coast. So if you want to check it out, I will try to drop a link on my community section of YouTube after we go live. But also, if you want to go follow him or subscribe to him, the Thrift Shop Hustler, ring that bell, and at noon when we go live, you should get a notification. Today we're going to be talking about trademarks. We're going to be talking about merch words you're not allowed to say. And I'm not an expert on this subject. I'm not a paralegal. I'm not a trademark attorney. This is a very kind of confusing topic, both in terms of the law as well as like how it's actually enforced by Amazon merch. So really, more than anything, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just kind of trying to open up a discussion. I'd like to hear some of your guys' experiences. And I have a pretty lengthy, very detailed email that a member of our very own community here, Icarus or Icarus, had sent me. He's got a couple family members who are trademark and patent attorneys. He's studied the topic extensively himself. And he was nice enough to kind of break some things down and kind of give us a bit of an education. And he told me that I could share it on the channel. So if you guys want to say thank you to him, I'm sure he'll be commenting here. He might be willing to answer some questions. If you guys want to reach out to him, just drop a comment, Icarus, I'm wondering XYZ, and hopefully he'll respond back. But tell him thank you for sharing this with us. I think it's really valuable. So in terms of trademarks, like how Amazon treats them and enforces them is very different than how they're treated and enforced in real life. Now, it's kind of my understanding that trademarks aren't really meant to like lock down a words that nobody else can ever, God forbid, utter it ever again. I mean, I think that trademarks do get abused, and I'll give you guys an example. Like, let's say I wanted to trademark the word successful, and then when Gary Vaynerchuk writes a book about, how to be successful in life or in business or entrepreneurship, I'm like, I sue him, and I'm like, Gary, man, you got to give me $1 from each book because I own the rights to the word successful. Or, when Grant Cardone comes out with how to be successful in real estate investing, okay, Grant, buddy, I'm suing you. Give me $1 per book. Like, I feel like trademarks wind up being abused. Really, a trademark is meant to protect your brand, protect people from kind of trying to steal your sales or steal your customers. And that's why, like, you can have two businesses, I believe, with the same name. So if I'm a fireman and I wanted to start a company that did seal coating, I could be Fireman Seal Coating. And if somebody else wanted to start a company like Fireman Shirts, well, they could do that as well. Like, we're not competing in the same space. Somebody who wants seal coating isn't going to be confusing Fireman Seal Coating with Fireman T-shirts. Also, it's kind of meant to protect logos and typefaces. So, here we have like Wrigleyville. This one has been abandoned, so it's not even active. But just because this guy has the word Wrigleyville trademark doesn't mean that somebody can't do Wrigleyville Grill, right? Like, it's a different typeface, a different logo. There's not really a chance of confusion here. However, what seems to happen on Amazon merch, if anything whatsoever comes up on Trademarkia, Amazon merch oftentimes will give you policy violations even if you're not infringing on somebody's trademark. So, just for example, I've had the word Wrigleyville blocked from listing, and I've also gotten a policy violation for it before. Now you can see the word Wrigleyville in and of itself was trademarked in 2009, but they never filed all the appropriate documents or never responded back, so it's abandoned and failed. Now, even though there's no active trademark for Wrigleyville, Amazon will pull your listings down for using the word Wrigleyville. Now, this person has my Wrigleyville Grill, but technically speaking, I should be allowed to make something with Wrigleyville. And that's kind of another thing about trademarks and patents is it seems like, let's kind of take it back for a second here. So there's a number of words that you're not allowed to say on Amazon merch, and a lot of these are kind of infamous within the merch community. So one, I think we talked about classy, despicable, Wrigleyville, hipster, low country. Now, the way trademarks are supposed to be treated, it's not as it, words that are common vernacular, you can't just trademark it and say nobody can ever say this word again. That's silly. But the word hipster, the word classy, you're not allowed to use those words, period, on Amazon. Now, in real life, in a court of law, whether that would be enforced or not is an entirely different thing. But it's kind of really frustrating that, I was doing a line of Chicago neighborhood t-shirts. So neighborhoods in Chicago, Ukrainian Village, Westtown, River North, Bucktown, Avondale. I was doing a series of Chicago neighborhood t-shirts, and Wrigleyville, which is a public place, a neighborhood, I'm not allowed to make shirts for because somebody trademarked it way back in 2009. I recently got another policy violation for the word low country. Low country down in Charleston, South Carolina, everything's low country. You see it on t-shirts, low country cafe, low country bistro. It's because, they're living in low country, they're on swampland. And it's kind of become part of the culture, or that's kind of, Charleston low country. And I should have known better. I mean, when you do a search for something and you have 10 pages of results, I probably should have known better and known that Amazon wasn't going to let this fly, even though I'm not really infringing on anybody's trademark. And here's another thing about trademarks too. So you're typically only allowed to protect things within a certain industry. So this person has low country and they're doing alcoholic beverages. So if I wanted to make low country paddle boards, technically speaking, that should be allowed, but Amazon wouldn't allow something like that because basically as soon as somebody has a word trademarked, Amazon kind of locks it down entirely. So I guess rather than me kind of rambling with how I think this system's all goofed up and everything, I guess we'll just get to Icarus's email. Let's see. Pitfalls, nevertheless, YouTube no. Okay, so, first off, obviously I'm not a patent attorney, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, that whole disclaimer out of the way, this isn't legal advice, but I do think that there's kind of a good framework here and some good information. So, starting with trademarks, which is, TM within the brackets, and service marks, SM. Trademarks are made to brand an item of trade, whereas service marks are made to trademark a service. Well, it seems backwards. McDonald's is actually a service mark because they themselves, as a fast food are a fast food service rather than a product. So McDonald's isn't a trademark. McDonald's is a service mark. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. To understand what is legal or illegal for a trademark or a service mark, both can be called a quote-unquote brand, which is a term I'll use going forward. You must understand the spirit of the law. Understanding the purpose of a brand is important to understand what the laws are meant to prevent and what they are meant to allow. Imagine there's a cowboy driving cattle. He really cares about his product, beef, enough to take good care of his cows. He feeds them only the top quality food and he keeps them vaccinated to protect them from disease. Although this is costly and time consuming, it is worth it because his beef is top quality and the butchers he sells his cattle to notice the quality of the beef. On the other hand, there is another cowboy who is all about turning a quick buck. As long as his cattle live long enough to make the trip, regardless of how malnourished or diseased they are when they arrive, that's all that matters. This beef has no quality, and it may end up not even being safe to eat sometimes. It makes sense that businesses would buy from the first guy and not the second, but sometimes cattle is bought and resold again. There has to be a way to distinguish the premium beef that people are willing to pay higher prices apart from the low-quality beef. So the cowboy invented his own logo and literally brands his product with hot branding iron. Pretty soon, the second cowboy realizes he can cheat the system. By copying the first cowboy's brand, he brands the same logo in his inferior cows in order to sell them at a premium price. This is why USPTO has laws about stealing brands. A brand is used to distinguish one company's product from another company's products. If someone copies a brand or even alters it in a minor way that people may not notice the alteration, with the intention of defrauding and tricking people into thinking they are the same thing, it's illegal. So, well, I didn't necessarily know all this. It kind of goes to why a lot of times trademarks, and I imagine I'll probably get into this, but why trademarks protect a certain industry, a certain typeface, or a certain logo. So, if there was something called low country cattle, and these people are selling low-country alcoholic beverages, clearly the person selling low-country alcoholic beverages is not trying to trick the people buying cattle into buying their product. It's two completely separate things. This is why packaging, too, is similar, with names spelled almost identically with similar fonts that are obviously trying to trick buyers into thinking they are a different company, are illegal. And kind of just an interesting aside from this, I don't know if you guys have noticed, is I personally haven't been to like a Las Vegas marijuana dispensary, but I know there's been some fights over this where, like, if you go to a weed dispensary, you know, Kit Kats are a candy, they might sell something called like Bud Cats, and they kind of copy the Kit Kat logo, but like add in a marijuana leaf. Like, I know a lot of dispensaries and or, you know, edible makers, bakers, whatever, have been sued for basically kind of making look-alike packaging. As far as what is acceptable, anything that could not cause brand confusion. If two companies have the same brand but are in totally different business markets, then there wouldn't be confusion. Take, for example, Spectrum Cable versus Spectrum Healthcare. If the two businesses overlap or are very related, that can cause brand confusion and could be illegal. Another acceptable practice is when there is a geographical limitation. This is less prevalent in the days of online sales having no geographical boundaries, but imagine if I have a recycling business where I picked up people's recycling from their houses. I cannot really do this business through the internet, and my business is probably limited to the geographical area. If your business happened to have the same brand and you are a local courier service in another state, then it would be fine. Even though the two businesses could be deemed similar, one picks up from locations while the other one delivers to locations. Also, there is a fair use and parody. In parody, the parody is obviously not meant to pass itself off for the real thing, but is transparently satirizing it. So I would think of something like Weird Al Yankovic. Now, if I remember, you know, he has been so out of the mainstream for so long, but I think a couple bands have tried to come after him for stealing their songs or lyrics or beats or whatever. But obviously what Weird Al Yankovic is doing is parody, right? Like he's making a joke of something. For example, I could create a business called Assbook that is obviously a parody of Facebook. However, if I created Facebook's, that would not be allowed. Also, when you create a brand, it is very important that you do not let people mix up the name of the brand with the name of the product. This is because if a name becomes synonymous with the product in the general public's eye, as the USPTO will determine by taking a consensus via survey of a group of random people, that's actually very interesting. I didn't know they did that. Then this is considered common vernacular, and the brand becomes a product name instead. A product name can be used by anyone. And these are some good examples. Examples, Band-Aid is not a product. If you look at a box of Band-Aids, they say Band-Aid brand adhesive strips. This means the product is called adhesive strips and not Band-Aids. Other examples, Jell-O brand gelatin desserts, Kleenex brand facial tissues, Escalator brand moving stairs, Q-Tip brand cotton swabs, Cheeto brand cheese-flavored snacks. And that's kind of interesting. You know, like, if I go to the dollar store and buy some crappy no-name box of Kleenex, when me and my girlfriend are sitting on a couch and her nose is running, she's not going to say, will you pass me a tissue? She's going to say, will you pass me a Kleenex, right? So this is kind of what he's talking about here. Bet you never realized that you cannot eat Cheetos because Cheetos is nothing more than a brand name like Microsoft. You can't eat Cheetos any more than you can eat Microsoft. No, instead you are buying cheese-flavored snacks. This brand distinction is important. Otherwise, if the word brand is not there, then every company that makes cheese-flavored snacks would be able to call theirs Cheetos. So go to the mall, take the moving stairs up to the second floor, buy me some cotton swabs, cheese-flavored snacks, facial tissues, and gelatin dessert. If this is helpful, I could do a write-up on patents and trade secrets, each with amusing examples. So thank you so much, Icarus. Guys, please drop a comment. Let him, you know, if you appreciated this, which I think you guys do. I actually learned a lot from this. Please drop him a comment. Tell him thank you for kind of providing that info. It does kind of shed some light on trademarks. And I think what his email really goes to show is how Amazon, and specifically Amazon Merch, treats trademarks is very different than it's treated in real life. And another kind of distinction to make is even just on Amazon itself, if you're making t-shirts through Printful and listing them on Amazon, oh man, my foot fell asleep. I was sitting on my foot. If you're making t-shirts on Printful and then getting a UPC code and listing those t-shirts on Amazon, Amazon's going to give you a little bit more leeway than if you're actually in the Amazon merch program, because I can find all types of t-shirts on Amazon that would not fly specifically on Amazon merch. So I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there's nothing that we can do about it. We just have to kind of work within the system. So typically what I'll do is I'll do a trademark search, or I'll do a search on either USPTO or Trademarkia or any of the other number of sites that do this. And if even one single result pops up, I'll stay away from it. And for whatever reason, I forgot to do Low Country. I just recently had to take down about 100 shirts. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to risk anything. I'm not going to go through editing. I just deleted all my Low Country shirts. But yeah, like I said, Classy, Despicable, Low Country, Hot Sauce, Wrigleyville. If there's any other terms that you've run into that aren't allowed, drop them below. One other thing that just really kind of surprises me is I'm surprised by how some large companies don't trademark some phrases there. So just to give you one last example before we cut out. The other day I was in Home Depot. Now, here in Chicago, the area code is 312. I guess technically it's 773 as well, but 312 is kind of the Chicago area code that most people recognize. And there's, you know, Goose Island makes 312 beer. And I saw a guy wearing kind of a cool shirt, and it says 312 thought you knew, and it's a Nike shirt. I think it has something to do with Dwayne Wade or something like that. But anyhow, I was kind of curious, so I went on Trademarkia as well as USPTO, and I typed in 312 thought you knew. And apparently, even though Nike is putting this on shirts, even a big company like Nike didn't bother trademarking that phrase. One last comment about trademarks is, you know, again, just to be clear, the intention of trademarks is not to allow somebody to lock down a word and nobody else can utter that word. It's meant to protect a specific brand, but I mean, at the end of the day, anybody can sue anybody for anything, and it's expensive to go to court, and there's a lot of people who kind of abuse the system and trademark something popular and then try to go crack down on people who were using that word long before they ever even trademarked it, and a lot of times it's cheaper just to pay these assholes out than it is to kind of fight it in court. But any other advice, tips that you guys have about trademarks, any other words that you found that you aren't allowed to use on Amazon merch, anything else that you guys can add that you think might be helpful, please drop it in the comment section below. Icarus, buddy, thank you so much. Got a lot of value out of this. Was really interesting. And if you guys are interested in hearing more about patents and things like that, I think he's got a lot of great information, and he kind of puts it together in a relatable, interesting, and funny way. So very, very thankful for that, guys. Thanks again. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.